Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. I work in a government freezer that's colder than your ex's heart, and almost as lifeless. Officially, it's the CDC'S Ice Core Archive Facility in Fairbanks, Alaska. Unofficially, it's where Frostbite goes to retire. My name's Rob. I'm not a scientist, or even someone with a GED in anything relevant. I clean. That's it. I mop floors, take out bins, and occasionally scrub blood off centrifuges with industrial-grade bleach that could melt the color off a rainbow. Now here's the part that matters. When they hired me, they gave me one rule. Never thaw tube number 72. That's it. Just one line on a laminated card taped to the locker they issued me. No explanation, no context. Just, tube number 72 is not to be removed from cold room 3A under any circumstance. Violations will result in immediate termination. And in Sharpie, beneath the printed line, also you'll die. They weren't even subtle about it. My shift starts at 10 p.m. and ends at 6 a.m., and I'm alone the entire time. The core facility doesn't exactly get traffic. There's a full staff of researchers during the day, but they clear out before nightfall like the sun has a grudge against them. The layout of the place is pretty simple. 3 giant cold rooms, each the size of a gymnasium, a break area that hasn't been updated since Clinton was in office, and a handful of reinforced lab spaces that stay locked at night. I mostly hover in 3B and 3C, where they store safe samples, cores drilled from the Antarctic and Greenland sheets, some dating back 800,000 years. Each one's packed in long metal tubes labeled in big black numbers. Most look the same, dull silver, barcoded, forgettable, except for tube number 72. That one's black, matte black, no label, no barcode, just the number etched in tiny letters near the cap. And every time I pass it, I feel it watching me. The cold rooms hum like a giant's air conditioner, but that night, the hum cut out for half a second, just long enough to hear something else under the surface, like shifting, like, breathing. I turned around expecting to see a coworker pulling a prank. Nothing. Just rows and rows of frozen time capsules, stacked like missiles from an alien war we forgot we were fighting. I told myself I was being dramatic, but I still swept a little faster that night, even skipped my usual smoke break. I lit one, got a puff, then flicked it out when I saw condensation on the inside of the freezer window. Condensation. In a room kept at -60 degrees Fahrenheit. I went to the admin office to file a maintenance ticket. Not that they'd read it. And that's when I noticed something weird on the clipboard. A checklist I'd never seen before. Daily observation log. Tube number 72. No tampering observed. No condensation or melting. Core cap intact and sealed. Audible noise, yes, no. Unusual temperature variance, yes, no. Movement detected, yes, no. That last one gave me pause. I flipped through the last few days. Monday. All boxes checked. No. Tuesday. Audible noise. Yes. Wednesday. Movement. Yes. Check this. Seriously. There were no entries after that. I'm not saying I ran back to the freezer with worry. But I walked very fast while rethinking all my life choices. When I opened cold room 3A again, it was just like before. Silent. Still. Ice shelf vibes. But when I walked past tube number 72, the metal shelf below it had puddled slightly. Not water, something thicker. Like brine. Or marrow? I reached for my mop. And here's a funny thing. The one I usually leave leaned in the corner wasn't there. Instead, a different one had been left behind. Older, ragged, like it had been pulled out of a janitor's grave. The label on it was faded, but I swear it said, "Property of Unit 5C, retired." We don't have a 5C. Hell, we barely have a 3A. I clocked out an hour early, didn't tell anyone, didn't sleep either. Just sat on my motel bed wondering what I'd gotten into, and why they pay me double overtime just to mop up a freezer no one visits. Tomorrow I'll bring a thermometer, maybe a recorder, maybe a crucifix just to be safe. But no matter what I do, I'm following the one rule. Don't thaw tube number 72. Some things are better left buried. The next night I showed up 10 minutes early. Not because I'm a good employee. I'm not. I once mopped an entire hallway by pushing a bucket with my foot and pretending to hum thoughtfully when supervisors walked by. But this time, I had a reason. 3, actually. I wanted to check if the puddle under tube number 72 was still there. I wanted to check if that old mop was gone. I wanted to confirm that I wasn't losing my damn mind. Spoiler, I only got 1 out of 3. I brought a digital thermometer from home, the kind hunters use for meat. As soon as I stepped into cold room 3A, I aimed it toward the rack where tube number 72 sat. The air read -57.8 degrees Fahrenheit. I walked a little closer, aimed at the shelf directly underneath it, -50.4. Closer still toward the metal lip of the tube itself, 38 degrees. Not negative, just 38, like a damn fridge. I stepped back, re-aimed, took the reading 3 more times. Same number, steady. The other cores all stayed frozen solid, but tube number 72 was somehow defrosting, by itself, in a room colder than a Siberian divorce. I left the thermometer wedged between 2 other cores and backed out of there like someone might slam the door behind me. Back in the break room, I tried calling the emergency line listed in the employee manual. It rang once, then gave me a fax tone. Swear to God. I flipped through the binder for any kind of support contact, a manager, a floor supervisor, even the snack machine guy, but all of it redirected to one internal line. Operations Oversight, extension. Use on Yeti. I tried dialing it. Dead silence. Then a voice I didn't recognize whispered, "You weren't scheduled to be there tonight," and hung up. I made myself a cup of hot chocolate using a dusty Keurig that coughed more than brewed, then wandered over to the security office. The door's always open because technically it's just for show during the night shift, but I'd never actually checked the monitors until now. There were only 4 cameras in the whole facility, 1 in the break room, 1 in the hallway outside the cold rooms, 1 at the loading dock, and 1 inside cold room 3A. The 4th monitor was dark. Dead feed. I toggled the interface and tried cycling through archived footage. No response. Just a blinking red light next to the label. CAM-3A disabled. Now, look, I may just be a janitor, but I've watched enough X-Files to know what that means. They don't want anyone watching tube number 72. Not even the feds. A little after midnight, I went to clean cold room 3C just to distract myself, but the whole time I felt weird. Like the building wasn't empty anymore. Like the air was pressurized, like you get before a storm or when someone's standing too close. And then I heard it. Knock. 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 Not a door. Something hard knocking against glass or plastic. I froze, mop in hand, standing by the far wall when it came again. Knock. 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 Not loud. Just rhythmic. Intentional. Coming from behind me. I turned around slowly and stared at the sealed emergency window into 3A, the one that hadn't fogged up in 10 years. And now it was covered in frost except for 3 perfect circles, wiped clean, like something inside had tapped 3 times with a finger, or claw, or knuckle, and cleared a window to watch me. I backed into the utility closet, locked the door, and sat on the floor next to the water heater like a grown man in a horror movie trying to convince himself it's all explainable. That's when I noticed something new. A rolled-up note tucked behind the cleaning supplies. Not typed, not laminated. Just old paper, yellowing at the corners, written in smeared red ink that might have been marker, or might not. It read, "It thaws itself. When it's ready, the cold won't stop it. The first janitor tried to destroy it. He's still here, in pieces. If you value your life, unplug the cameras. They're not recording you." I didn't sleep after that. Didn't even finish my shift. Just walked out the back loading door and kept going until I saw a gas station and bought a coffee I didn't want just so someone would acknowledge I still existed. I'm going back tonight. Not because I'm brave. Because I checked my bank account and saw the direct deposit hit again. Triple overtime this time. They want me to come back. They expect me to. And whatever's inside tube number 72, I think it's awake. I wasn't planning on going back. I had a bag packed and everything. Figured I'd drive south, maybe find a job that didn't involve ancient frozen hell tubes. But curiosity is a tricky bastard. So is debt. And so is the CDC when they email you a new contract with a hazard bonus. Too big to ignore. I stared at the number for a while before signing. 5 digits. For 1 week of work. All I had to do was maintain basic custodial oversight of Cold Room 3A until further notice. No mention of the knocks. No mention of the voice on the phone. No mention of the puddle beneath tube number 72, or the mop that came from nowhere, or the fact that I was starting to hear things in the vents. Nope. Just show up, sweep floors, and keep my mouth shut. The moment I stepped inside, the temperature hit me like a punch to the lungs. Not just cold, but wrong cold. The kind that makes your bones ache before your skin even registers it. And I swear, the lights dimmed when I walked in. Like the building itself was disappointed I'd come back. I went straight to the control terminal in the hallway and tried accessing the cold room logs again. This time I got through, and that's when things got worse. Because according to the system, tube number 72 had been checked out. Date, none listed. Authorized by, classified entry, override 117. Current status, returned, compromise seal. Additional note, do not report. Yeah, that's a comforting thing to read at 10:03 p.m. with nobody else in the building and the freezer humming like it has asthma. I grabbed my mop, the normal one, the one with the blue handle and duct tape around the base, the real one. I made sure. Then I walked into Cold Room 3A. Tube number 72 was exactly where it had been. Same shelf, same angle. But now it was resting in a shallow puddle of liquid that steamed slightly when I got too close. Steamed, in a sub-zero room. I stared at the black tube for a long minute before noticing something else. There was sound. Not loud, not distinct, but definitely there. Like a faint rhythmic hum, almost a vibration. You couldn't hear it unless you were right next to the tube. I crouched down, pressed my ear to the shelf. It sounded like clicking, almost like Morse code, except faster, sharper, wet. And then it stopped. I stood up fast enough to pop my knee. And that's when I saw the frost writing. On the plexiglass wall, the same one with the 3 smudges from the other night. A new message had appeared, etched in dripping frost like it had been breathed into place. We are still alive. I backed out of the room slowly, not even bothering to clean the puddle. The door shut behind me with a hiss, and I stood there shaking in the hallway for a few seconds before heading back to the office to file an incident report I knew no one would ever read. Halfway through the form, the hallway lights flickered. Just once. Then the PA system crackled to life. We haven't used that thing since I started. I assumed it didn't even work anymore. A voice came through, mechanical, distorted, but unmistakably female. It said, "Initiate Phase 2. Subject number 72 has begun voluntary broadcast." Voluntary. Like it was choosing to reach out. Like it was aware. The rest of my shift was uneventful, if you define uneventful as trying not to scream while watching shadows crawl across sealed doors and pretending your hot chocolate doesn't taste like copper. When 6 a.m. rolled around, I expected to feel relief. But the second I stepped outside, I noticed something that hadn't been there before. A second car in the lot. Black SUV. No plates. Parked under the only dead light pole in the entire lot. windows tinted, still idling. I walked toward it out of habit. I mean, maybe it was a government inspection team, right? The window rolled down halfway. A man in a dark suit looked out at me, pale face, thin lips, eyes like he'd watched the world end 3 times already. He said, "Keep the floors clean. That's all we ask." Then rolled the window up and sat there, still idling, still watching. I don't know what's inside tube number 72, but it's not frozen anymore, and I don't think it's alone. The SUV was gone when I came back the next night. No tire tracks in the snow, no engine noise, no heat trail. Just an empty spot under that same dead pole, like it had never been there. But I knew better. Inside, the facility was colder than usual. The kind of cold that makes your nose bleed in slow motion. Not the air, the silence. It wasn't normal anymore, not even CDC normal. I turned on all the lights manually, didn't even pretend to do my usual first-round sweep. Went straight to cold room 3A and stood outside the glass. Tube number 72 was steaming, again. But the puddle underneath had changed. Not water, not brine. Something viscous, murky green. Like antifreeze had a baby with spoiled milk. I started to gag just looking at it. I glanced up at the digital thermometer mounted above the vault. It read 17 degrees Fahrenheit. That's impossible. That room is rated for -60. Sealed. Regulated. But here it was. 17 degrees and rising. I backed away, locking the cold room behind me, then made a beeline for the break room. The TV in there was supposed to play training videos on loop. Things like chemical safety or harassment policies, none of which have aged well. But the screen was frozen on a single frame. A zoomed-in shot of a microscopic organism. It pulsed, repeatedly, like it was alive inside the screen. Caption at the bottom. Subject 72. Resonance phase, confirmed. In vivo testing, scheduled. Cleaning crew, cleared. I don't know which part unsettled me more, the word resonance, or the fact that I'm the entire cleaning crew. I tried calling the emergency number again, still just fax tone and static. But this time, the static shifted, turned rhythmic, clicks and gaps, a pattern. I held the phone to my ear and scribbled what I heard on a paper napkin like a crazy person solving a zodiac puzzle. The clicking didn't repeat, it didn't loop. It answered me, or warned me. I don't know which. But the translation, and yes, I looked it up because I have exactly one useful hobby, was chilling. Basic Morse. Let us out. I dropped the phone. It didn't hang up. I could still hear it breathing. At 2:42 a.m., the lights in cold room 3B went out, not flickered, outside. And then the door unsealed itself with a loud click. I wasn't even near it. I sprinted to the panel and slammed it shut again, locking it from the outside. 10 seconds later, something knocked from the inside. Not like a fist, more like claws. I wrote it off as stress hallucination and did the most responsible thing I could think of. Hid in the supply closet with a box of gloves and a candy bar I found behind the bleach. That's where I found the journal. Stuffed into a crate of expired mop heads. It wasn't a full journal, just a few loose, mold-stained pages. Mostly rambling, smeared pencil scribbles and diagrams. But one part stood out. A short passage written in all caps across a piece of what looked like old CDC letterhead. They're not organisms, they're instructions. Genetic code is a language, and this one is still speaking. It's sending out signals, it's looking for hosts. The author didn't sign it, but the bottom had a fingerprint, smudged, green. Around 4:15 a.m., a loud thud echoed through the hallway, like something heavy had fallen from a height. Then a long dragging noise. And then, nothing. I poked my head out. Nothing visible. Except for the trail. Wet. Sticky. Leading from the freezer door down the north hallway toward Lab 2. I followed it because I'm a moron, and that's what morons do when they're paid 5 figures for a week of janitorial terror. Inside Lab 2, the lights were flickering. Something had written on the glass observation window in that same frost breath script from before. "One of you already let us out." And underneath that, in red marker, it wasn't me. The security feed glitched at 5:07 a.m. Every screen in the monitoring room suddenly cut to static, and then briefly, just for half a second, showed an interior shot of cold room 3A. But it was wrong. The tube was open, not removed, split, like it had cracked along the seam. A faint light bled out of it, not bright, not natural, and standing in the frame, watching it, me. Except I hadn't been inside the room all night, and the version of me on the screen was smiling. I've got one more shift before the weekend, and I've already decided I'm bringing something sharp with me next time. A crowbar, fire axe, holy water, something. Because whatever is in tube number 72, it's not a specimen, it's a message, and someone's already read it. I didn't sleep after that last shift. I sat in the motel bathroom with the lights on, the door locked, and my phone flashlight pointed at the hallway because the shadows kept moving wrong. Not fast, just intentionally. Every few minutes I'd swear I heard wet footsteps outside the door. Slap, slap, drag, slap, slap. When I finally stepped out around 9 a.m. to grab coffee, I noticed something carved into the driver's side window of my truck. "Welcome to hosting duty." No broken glass, no scratches around the frame, just neat surgical etching, like someone used a laser scalpel instead of a key. I should have left, gotten in the truck, kept driving until I saw palm trees and forgot what snow even was. But instead, I went back. Because something in that building wants me there, and I want to know why. This time, I brought backup. An old crowbar, a pair of noise-canceling headphones, and a pack of glow sticks I found in the janitor locker from who knows when. They were in a dusty box labeled for 72 incidents only. Helpful. At 10:41 p.m., the lights in cold room 3A dimmed on their own, just the ones above tube number 72. The rest of the room stayed bright as ever, but the space around the tube went gray, foggy, like the shadows didn't want to leave it. I stayed outside the glass, trying to psych myself up to go in, when the intercom above me clicked on with a bizzed and said, flat and emotionless, "Containment protocol delayed. Observe host response." The voice was mine. Not close, not similar, exact. I walked away from the freezer, slowly. That's when I saw the red light blinking outside Lab 1, a motion sensor trip. I grabbed the crowbar tight and followed the hallway past the security monitors. Everything was showing static now except for camera 3A, which showed nothing. Not blackness, not frost. Just, white. Like the image was overexposed. Inside Lab 1 I found something new. A pile of old personnel files, burnt at the edges. Some pages melted together. But one stood out. A time-stamped clearance form dated 2003 for a janitor named Miller, J. Raymond. Job title, Custodial Oversight, Level 2. Work Area, 3A, High-Risk Samples. Final status, Unresolved, Missing. Attached to the file was a single photo. A blurry shot of a younger man standing in the cold room with his mop beside him. The background was hard to make out, but there was a tube on the shelf behind him. Tube number 72, and it was already steaming. I flipped the photo over. Someone had written on the back with a thick black marker, "Miller never thawed it. It thawed him." Below that, another line added in smaller script, barely legible. "Check the walls." I went back to cold room 3A. This time, I opened the door. The fog curled out like smoke from a dragon's mouth. I stepped inside, glow stick in one hand, crowbar in the other. I followed the left-hand wall, running my fingers along the frosted metal until I found it. A panel loose at the edges. I pried it open with the crowbar. Inside was a crawl space. Not officially marked, definitely not up to code. But it led behind the racks, and down. I squeezed in, dragging my gear with me, heart hammering so loud I thought the thing inside the tube would hear it and answer back. The passage dropped about 6 feet, then leveled out. I was under the freezer now, surrounded by old support struts and heavy cabling. And then I saw the mark, carved into the ice-covered metal pipe, a symbol like an eye crossed with a tree. It pulsed faintly in the dark, glowing green in time with my heartbeat. Next to it, written in blood or something very close to it, were 5 words. The signal woke up hungry. I turned to leave and found something I hadn't noticed before. A ragged CDC parka, half fused to the wall with ice. Inside it, bones, clean, pale, arranged like the skeleton had knelt there willingly, and clutched in its frozen fingers was a mop handle. Blue, splintered. I didn't touch it, just backed out and climbed up into the freezer again, shivering harder now. Not from cold, but from the realization that I hadn't seen my mop since I got back. At 4:17 a.m., the voice returned over the intercom. Test host confirmed, memory integration complete. And then a second voice layered over it. Same tone, same pitch, but off. Not mechanical, not human either. It said, "Come see what you forgot." The light above the freezer door turned green. The room wants me now. Tube number 72 isn't just thawing, it's remembering, and it thinks I belong to it. When I first started this job, the cold was the worst part. Not the isolation, not the ghostly silence, just the brutal, bone-deep chill that never left your fingertips, no matter how many layers you wore. Now the cold is the only thing keeping me sane, because whatever's inside tube number 72, it doesn't like the cold, and it's losing patience. At exactly 10:01 p.m., I entered the facility and felt it immediately. Warmth, not everywhere, just in a slow, crawling wave. Like the building itself was starting to sweat. The vents blew hot air, even though the thermostat was locked at -40. The ice on the windows had thinned, and the hallway leading to cold room 3A, dripping. Like something was breathing on it from the inside. I tried checking the breaker panel, thinking maybe someone tampered with the power grid, but it was sealed. Not locked, welded shut. I tapped on it and got a hollow echo. Then, something behind me whispered, "Do you remember the cold?" I turned fast. No one there. Just the long hallway and my reflection in the glass. Except the reflection was late. It moved just a fraction of a second too slow. And its eyes weren't mine. Back in the break room, the old TV was on again. Static, this time. But buried under the hiss was a sound I couldn't unhear once I recognized it. A baby, crying. Muffled, distorted, looping. Then the screen flickered, not to a video. Not to a person, to a drawing. Childlike. Crude crayon lines on graph paper. A stick figure inside a black tube. And above it, written in crooked letters, "Daddy said not to open it, but he lied." The screen turned off. By midnight, the temperature in cold room 3A had risen to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. No alarms, no auto lock. And the door, already ajar. That shouldn't be possible. The door's magnetic seal is pressure locked. Triple security. But there it was, cracked open just wide enough for someone to slip in sideways. I did something stupid. I leaned in. Just past the threshold, the air was dense, wet, heavy with breath. The sound wasn't a hum anymore. It was closer to singing. Something with rhythm, but no melody. A low, bubbling drone that shifted as you moved. And in the center of the fog, tube number 72, open. The cap was rolled off, lying on the floor. A slow drip fell from its mouth like saliva from a sleeping jaw. Something inside the tube moved. I dropped the crowbar. Didn't even notice until I was back at the admin terminal, hands shaking, trying to load the incident report form. But now the database was locked behind a password I'd never seen before. And the prompt blinked. Enter phrase to remember. Just that. No ID request. No badge scan. I typed, "I don't know." The screen went black. Then a new message appeared. "Yes, you do." The lights flickered. All of them. Even my flashlight. Then came the worst part. I walked back toward the freezer. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. My legs weren't mine anymore. They moved on their own, slow and steady, like someone was remembering how I walked. I got halfway to 3A before I saw the shape. It stood at the far end of the hall, motionless. Tall, thin, wrapped in layers of lab coats that hung like wet paper. Its face was obscured, not because it wore a mask, but because its head was wrong. Too long, slightly tilted, like it had forgotten the concept of a skull and was making it up as it went. It watched me. I watched it. Then it lifted something in its hand. A mop. Blue handle, splintered. My mop. I backed away, one step at a time, heart jackhammering. But instead of chasing me, the thing simply turned and walked into cold room 3A and sealed the door behind it. The lights outside the freezer turned red. Not danger red. Occupied red. I went back to the journal pages I'd hidden behind the vending machine. Read every one again. Looked for a clue. A weakness. Something I missed. One of the diagrams showed a human spinal column wrapped in what looked like coral, but it wasn't labeled bone or fungus. It was labeled memory scaffold. Another note said, "It can't grow in ice, but it can remember." It learned human anatomy from watching us through the walls. We didn't study it. It studied us. At 5:13 a.m., the singing stopped. The lights flickered one final time and then nothing. No hum, no frost, no motion alerts. The facility went dead quiet, like it had finished something, like it was waiting. I'm going back tonight. I know how that sounds, but I have to, because whatever I saw, it had my mop, and something about that feels final, like it's telling me, "You're next." I brought a mirror with me this time, not for vanity. I haven't shaved in days and I look like someone who lost a fight with a leaf blower. No, I brought it to make sure the thing in the halls wasn't walking like me again, because the last time I saw it, the tall, faceless thing wrapped in lab coats, it wasn't just carrying my mop, it was studying me, and I think it's learning. The moment I stepped into the building, my phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a message. "You're not the first." That was it. Attached was a low-resolution image. Black and white. Grainy. Looked like a security still from 2003. It showed cold room 3A. Tube number 72 open. A man, face obscured, kneeling in front of it with both hands submerged inside, like he was trying to reach through ice and time. Caption in red. Miller initiated contact. Sentence. Absorbed. I closed the message. Battery dropped from 80% to 4% in seconds. The screen turned black. A faint hiss came from the speaker, like breathing underwater. The first 30 minutes of my shift were uneventful. Too uneventful. No flickering lights, no whispers, no static over the intercom. That's how I knew something was wrong. Because silence isn't peace here. Silence means it's hiding. I passed by Lab 4 on my way to the cold chambers and noticed something strange. The room was fogged from the inside, like a hot shower had been running non-stop. This is impossible. The labs are sterilized, sealed, cooled. I cracked the door open just enough to peek in. There was frost on the ceiling, and vines growing from the floor vents, thin, black, veined like arteries. One had grown into the wall-mounted clock, twisting the hands into an infinity symbol. The vines pulsed slightly, like they were breathing, or waiting. I closed the door. Back in cold room 3A, I found the tube exactly where I left it. Open, weeping condensation that smelled like bleach and rotted copper. But now the cap had something carved into it. A word. ECHO. And beneath the tube, the metal shelf had warped, like it had melted slightly and then refroze in a new shape. A shape that looked an awful lot like a spine. I don't know if that was intentional, but something about it made my stomach turn cold, like it wasn't trying to be symbolic. It was remembering how to build one. At 1:17 a.m., The PA system came on again. This time there was no voice, just a tone. A low frequency that made the fillings in my teeth itch and my vision swim. I shoved my noise-canceling headphones on and ducked behind the storage lockers. And even then I could feel it pressing on my thoughts. Images flashed behind my eyes. Not mine. A woman I didn't know, screaming behind a glass door. A lab, flooded in red light. The number 72 stamped on a newborn's wristband. A wall of body bags, except they weren't zipped. They were breathing. When the tone stopped, the air tasted metallic. I stood up slowly, blinking stars out of my vision. And that's when I saw it. My reflection in the glass door wasn't blinking. It stood there, eyes locked on me, breathing steady, perfectly still. Then, slowly, it smiled. I did not. I ran. Back through the corridor, past the control panels and lockers and the break room where the TV had begun quietly playing children's cartoons. Voices reversed, color inverted, the music laughing at the wrong time. I turned the corner toward the exit and froze. There it was again. The figure. Still wearing the old mop bucket like a helmet. Still wrapped in lab coats soaked with thawed memory. But now? Now it looked like me. Not in general shape. Exactly. Same jacket, same boots, same birthmark on the cheek. Only difference? Its chest didn't rise and fall. It just stood there. Still. And then it tilted its head, not curiously, but like it was trying to remember how the gesture worked. I took a single step back. The hallway lights flickered, and then I heard it whisper, not from its mouth, but inside my own skull. You were always part of the archive. The janitor is just a sleeve. You kept us clean. Now we'll wear you. I turned and ran through the lab wing, doors slamming behind me one after the other like a giant was breathing down my neck. When I reached the main exit, the security lock was gone. Not broken. Gone. Like the wall had never been there. In its place, a hallway I didn't recognize. Pipes dripping steam, floor made of glass, and beneath it, rows of tubes. Thousands of them, each labeled 72. And every single one, cracked open. I'm writing this now from the observation booth. I don't think I can leave. Not because I'm trapped, but because I don't know which version of me made it out, and which one's still mopping the memory. Time doesn't work right in the hallway. I tried timing myself, dropped a glow stick, counted 30 seconds, picked it back up. It was still warm. But when I checked the wall clock in the lab, 2 hours had passed. I don't know what's real anymore. Except one thing. Tube number 72 isn't a container, it's a door. Every time I look at it now, it's different. Taller, or deeper, or breathing. Last night I stood in front of it and stared too long. You ever do that with a campfire? Where your thoughts melt. Same thing here, but worse. Because I didn't zone out. Something reached out. Not physically, not even psychically. It reached into my memory. I remembered things I've never done. Digging through polar ice with bare hands. Screaming in an airlock. Watching frost grow over my pupils as my last thought whispered, "We are not the first." I snapped out of it covered in sweat, which is strange, because the cold room is back down to minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Still not low enough. Not for that thing. I checked the staff logs, still locked out, but someone had bypassed the system. There's a new login now. User, guest 72. Access, observer. Status pending fusion, and then below that, a line of text flickering in and out. The janitor is compliant, ready to retain. I started taping mirrors to every exit. I needed to make sure I could still trust my reflection. That when I turned, it turned with me. That it blinked when I blinked. So far, it's held up. Except in the lab restroom. That mirror showed me scrubbing the floor of cold room 3A, while I stood in front of it, completely still. My reflection stopped, looked up and smiled. I went back into the maintenance crawl space from earlier, where I found the frozen corpse of the first janitor, Miller. The body's gone now. All that's left is the parka, melted into the ice, and a trail of water that leads deeper into the subfloor level I didn't know existed. The passage ends at a hatch marked Archive, Phase 1. The hatch was ajar. Inside, more tubes. But these weren't numbered. They were named. Each one labeled with neat white stenciling. And I recognized the names. Miller, J. Raymond. Initial integration unstable. Hernandez, Tasha. Incomplete surrender. Wallace, Robert. Host pending compliance. That last one, that's me. The tube labeled with my name had condensation on the inside, from the inside, like someone had recently breathed out. The walls of the chamber were covered in old, smudged whiteboards. Equations, symbols, and a single word repeated over and over. ECHOFORM. I don't know what that means, but it's on everything now. The monitors, the sample bags, even the mop handle I left in the break room. Someone wrote it on the shaft in Sharpie like a brand label. I swear it wasn't there before. But maybe that's the trick. Maybe it's not changing the world around me. Maybe it's rewriting me to match. At 3:36 a.m., the power failed. No hum, no emergency lights, no system reboot, just me, alone in pitch black. And that's when I saw it. Tube number 72, glowing, not with electricity, with memory. Images flickering in its surface like projected film. Faces, places, me, over and over again. And then a sound started, not screaming, typing, from every room at once. I ran to the nearest console. The keyboard was moving, typing by itself. And what it wrote? Line by line. Containment was never possible. Echoform is an archival parasite. Memory is its vector. You looked too long. Now it knows you. Now it is you. I blacked out. Woke up on the floor in the hallway next to a pile of old mops and a photo I don't remember taking. It's of me, standing outside the freezer. But my face is wrong. Too smooth. No mouth. The air is changing now. The cold rooms aren't cold anymore. Every surface is moist, warm, vibrating, like the whole facility is thawing, like it's becoming a body, and I'm the last organ it needs. I've started talking to myself, out loud, not mumbling. Full conversations. Sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it. Tonight I caught myself asking, "Do you remember the first spill?" I didn't mean to say it, but I answered anyway. Yes, he fell through the floor. The worst part? I was alone in the room, and I didn't know which voice was mine. When I entered the facility tonight, I saw my face on the welcome screen. The digital ID reader blinked green, even though I hadn't swiped in. Welcome back, Robert Wallace. Compliance, 91%. I tried backing out, but the front doors refused to open. Instead, the system chimed cheerfully and said, "You have 6 hours remaining. Integration is nearly complete. We appreciate your memories." At 11:12 p.m., the power surged. Not flickered, surged. The hallway lights brightened until they buzzed, then dimmed again. All at once, every screen in the building displayed the same message. Rehearsal loop initiated. A countdown began from 6 hours. My shift. The system wasn't tracking time anymore. It was tracking me. I ran to the observation booth hoping I could override the lockdown. When I got there, the monitors showed live footage of every room. Only none of them matched reality. On the screen, Cold Room 3A was flooded with blood. Lab 2 had no floor, just an endless pit. The break room was full of me, dozens of me, all sitting still, all facing the same direction. And in the hallway, one version of me was mopping. I checked the live feed timestamp. It said, February 13th, 2003, 10:06 p.m. The night Miller disappeared. I tried shutting off the monitors. No response. Instead, one screen blinked to a new feed, a close-up camera I'd never seen before. It was inside the tube. Inside tube number 72. It showed a swirling black liquid, thick and slow like oil, forming and unforming a human face. It didn't look like anyone I recognized. Then it changed. Bone structure shifting, hair darkening, skin bubbling in reverse. It looked like me, and it whispered, "You've practiced enough. Now you'll stay behind the glass. We need a new janitor." The floor shook once, just once, like something heavy had dropped behind the walls, or maybe under them. I grabbed a fire axe from the emergency cabinet and made my way to cold room 3A for the last time. I knew it was a trap, but I had to see it. The tube, the room, whatever it had become. The door was already open. Inside was no longer a freezer. It was alive. Walls lined with soft tissue, veins pulsing beneath frost-slicked plexiglass, tubes hanging from the ceiling like inverted spines. And in the center, the original tube, still black, still humming, but now cracked, not broken, hatched. From the seam, a single limb had emerged, thin, wet, made of cartilage and old memory. It flexed in the air like a blind snake testing light for the first time. I stepped closer. A heartbeat echoed through the walls. Not mine, not singular. A chorus. The air thickened. I could feel words forming in my teeth. Not spoken, just arranged. Echo form complete, transfer protocol commencing. I raised the axe, swung it at the tube. It stopped mid-air. Not because I missed, because my other arm grabbed it, the one I wasn't controlling. I turned and saw myself, the real me, or the version before this one. The mop in his hand was red with frost. He said, "You got sloppy," and smiled with my face. I screamed, swung anyway, made contact. The tube split down the middle like a wet cocoon. The fluid inside spilled out, fast, hissing on the floor like acid meeting ice. From within came something that was me. Only younger, sharper, like a version of myself I'd almost been, or maybe already was. It reached out, not to grab me, to hug me, and whispered, "Let's clean up." The room exploded with light, searing, blinding, not heat, memory. All the lives it had gathered, all the faces, all the copies, Miller, Tasha, me, dozens of me, flickering through my head in rapid-fire bursts, janitors, soldiers, scientists, all mopping the same eternal hallway, all making the same mistake, all welcoming the thaw. I woke up lying outside cold room 3A, covered in brine, no wounds, no burns, just altered. The countdown was at 0000, but now it read, cycle complete, ready for next. And the freezer? Sealed again. Like nothing ever happened. I didn't go home after the thaw. Not that I had one to go back to. The motel room was gone. Not empty, gone. Like the entire structure had been swallowed whole. Nothing left but tire tracks in the snow and a single room key half melted into the ice. Room 72. Of course it was. Back at the facility, everything looks normal again. Cold room 3A is sealed tight. The monitors are clear. The lights don't flicker. Even the mop bucket is back where it belongs, tucked behind the supply closet, with the label freshly printed. Property of Janitor Wallace. Neat. Sterile. Official. Too official. Like someone reset everything to the moment before it all went wrong. But I know better. The brine never leaves your skin. Even when I scrub, I can feel it beneath the surface. Tiny crystals crawling under my fingernails. Memory spores. Frozen thoughts waiting to bloom. Sometimes I smell the frost. Other times I hear things mopping floors that aren't there. Last night, a new cleaning log appeared in the terminal. Routine maintenance assignment, Branch 7C. Destination, off-site cryo archive, undisclosed. Note, Janitor Wallace reassigned. Replacement pending. And below that, blinking. Host replacement required. Apply memetic template to incoming staff. They're not even subtle anymore. That's the real trick. You think it wants out? Number it wants in. Tube number 72 was never the threat. I am. Or whatever's wearing me now. I don't know how long I've been awake. The days loop. The sun never rises quite the same way twice. Sometimes the janitor locker is on the left. Sometimes the hallway bends the wrong direction. Sometimes the man I pass in the mirror blinks before I do. But the mop's always there. And so is the rule. They've started hiring again. I watched a new guy walk in this morning. 22. Nervous. Wore a hoodie with a bleach stain and asked where the break room was. I smiled and pointed. He asked if there was anything he needed to know. I handed him a laminated card. 1 sentence. Black ink. Government font. Never Thaw tube number 72. He laughed. You serious? I didn't answer. I just picked up the mop and kept cleaning. The cold room is humming again. Tube number 72 rattles slightly when no one's looking. And I think the next janitor will be better than me. More compliant. Easier to mold. After all, practice makes perfect.